and welcome to the Last Mixtape podcast. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we delve into Chappell Roan, Pink Pony Club, and Have You Found Your Favourite Artist Yet? And the latest music from the week that was. Your favourite artist is out there. They're trying to get to you, but they can't because there's a machine in the way. Not my words, but the words of American comedian Josh Johnson. Why, Stephen, I hear you ask, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, are you quoting American comedian Josh Johnson at the beginning of this week's episode? Well, this week, I thought we'd delve into the music of Chappell Roan, Pink Pony Club, and how your favourite artist is out there, but you have to try your hardest to find them. Chappell Roan's Pink Pony Club is a perfect example of a song that slowly and organically became a hit. Not because of industry backing or algorithmic boosts, but because of her audience and her artistry made it happen. Today, we're exploring what it really means to find your audience in 2025, and why some of the best songs might be buried beneath an algorithm and a mountain of music, and you as the audience have to seek it out to find it. As I said at the beginning, in the words of Josh Johnson, your favourite artist is out there. In 2020, Chappell Roan released Pink Pony Club, a shimmering theatrical anthem about chasing your dreams, even if it means leaving home behind. But for years, the song went largely unnoticed. After being dropped by her major label, Roan faced a daunting task of redefining her career without industry support. Rather than fading away, she embraced her authentic self and rebuilt from the ground up. And this is where things get interesting. Chappell Roan's Pink Pony Club didn't have a viral moment, it didn't have massive radio play or huge industry backing, but what it did have was something that could not be manufactured. It had a genuine personal connection with its audience and its artist, one that could not be created in a lab and one that could not be replicated just through marketing and PR alone. So something had changed. How did a song that had existed for years and slowly been building an audience and become a cult favourite turn into something that was viral, that was out in the ether and that was part of the cultural zeitgeist? How did Chappell Roan and Pink Pony Club show that indeed your favourite artist and your favourite song is out there, it's just buried deep? After being dropped by her label, Chappell Roan immersed herself in the queer community, performing in drag bars, queer clubs and DIY venues where her music could truly resonate. Slowly, the song started spreading. Fans championed it on TikTok, not through forced viral challenges, but organically, through word of mouth, playlists, and personal stories of how Pink Pony Club made them feel seen. One of the biggest factors of Pink Pony Club's rise to prominence is Chappell Roan herself. Her live shows had become legendary. There was drama, melodrama, costume changes, a huge performance and a huge performer that had resonated with the audience she had toured and played live in front of. Creating a genuine connection with her audience, people left those shows not feeling like they'd just been entertained or watched a great live performance, but that they felt they had found a community and they had found an artist that spoke directly to them. This is something streaming algorithms can't manufacture. Real, in-person connection. It's a reminder that sometimes the best way to break a song isn't through a viral TikTok trend, but through an artist creating a space where people find something genuine. Josh Johnson's quote that you haven't found your favourite artist yet hits harder when you realise how platforms like Spotify and Apple work. Indeed, the platforms this podcast you may be listening to on. Indeed, they push artists that are already popular or owned by record labels to the forefront, burying other artists far below. They have massive budgets, massive resources, and the people power in order to do it. Small independent artists do not have that luxury. And if you don't fit the mould, as it were, well, you're going to get buried underneath that power. Unless you find an audience that can do some of the work for you. This is exactly what happened with Pink Pony Club. People didn't just listen, they shared, they played it at parties, they screamed it at concerts, and over time it became undeniable. This isn't just about Chappell Roan. Artists like Mitski, who took years to break into the mainstream, prove that sometimes audiences, not labels, decide what lasts. Like Chappell Roan, Mitski didn't break through overnight, but what they both have in common is something more valuable than a viral moment. Fans who believe in their music, enough to keep pushing it forward. So for me, this is what really interested me in Chappell Roan and Pink Pony Club, and why this week the song has become a UK #1 for the American artist. It's very interesting how that song has existed for 3 to 4 to 5 years without really reaching that kind of audience. And it says something about the music scene itself. It says something about what we are being exposed to and how we are being exposed to it. The idea that the internet may have been at some point the great democratization of art, that maybe your favorite artist would get that through some sort of long tail system in which everyone's on a kind of an even keel and you can delve into the music scene and you can delve far enough, you can find your artist that you like. And that is still possible. But algorithms are soulless monsters. It's an unfeeling thing. It's not like a DJ. It's not like, somebody picking out songs or tracks or videos on MTV. It's something very, very different. It thinks it knows what you like, and then it keeps repeating back to you what you want. And if somebody can control that algorithm, record companies or even the streaming platforms themselves, to push certain artists out in a certain way, well, there's going to be a loop, isn't there? You're going to get caught in that loop. And artists such as Chappell Roan could have very easily fallen by the wayside. I think they have continuously kind of fought for artists' rights. You saw that at the Grammys when she spoke about having an artists' union and how record companies should take care of artists. And she knows from being dropped by a label what that feels like and how it feels like all of a sudden to think you have that career and maybe you don't. And really kind of the stick-to-itiveness of what she has done. Pink Pony Club, when you listen to it, is a fantastic track. It's clearly a fantastic track when you listen to it, and very emotional. And when you listen to it now, obviously with the power of hindsight, it's so obvious it would have found an audience. It's so obvious that it would have spoke to people that it does. If you go to a Chappell Roan gig, or if you go to a show, or anything like that, you see what it means to people and how we're connecting on people. When you go online and you see how people have connected to that song or to the music video or to whatever, parts of their own lives have been put into it. That kind of goes on to the idea of that cannot be manufactured. It can be attempted. They can attempt to find somebody Chappell Roan-esque, and I have no doubt that that's being attempted. But the idea that kind of happened organically because there was truth in it. There was truth in that art. There was something different. It provided a voice to an audience or to a community that not necessarily had that before, and not in such a big way. But that community is out there. That community does exist. And how Chappell Roan was found, and as I say, some of the audience does some of the work there. That's not to say that Chappell Roan has not worked incredibly hard on her music career. She has. But to have an audience that dedicated, that loves that music so much, that puts it into something so hard, into the algorithm, forces it through almost, is a reminder of how many Chappell Roans fell by the wayside, how many artists did not quite make it, how many artists feel like they're not. We're talking about this idea of, not fitting the mold, that your art, and I'm not just talking about music, I could be talking about film, I could be talking about photography, dance, any sort of artistic endeavor may make you feel like it's not good enough, or there's no one out here to listen to it, or nobody wants my art, nobody can see my art. And some of that is just the pure deluge of art out there, and it's quite fatiguing probably for a lot of people. Getting your art heard does mean that there's a lot of leg ups for a lot of people if there are a lot of clicks. If there is a click within any artistic endeavor, within any art community, a record company can be seen as a click in a lot of ways. The record industry can be seen as a click in a lot of ways. And if you don't fit that mold, if you don't play the game, it's kind of ignored almost that there is an audience for it. However big or small, there is an audience for it, and that people will connect with your art in some way. That doesn't guarantee Chappell Roan layers of brilliance or whatever like that. I think she's an incredibly interesting artist that I would equate to. We were talking about Kate Bush last week. I think the drama of her music has that sort of 80s Kate Bush feel to it. Hounds of Love almost. The kind of the synthy feel to it. Good Luck Babe, I think, has a little bit of that. As well as the kind of her performances as well, where she's dressed in the armor and stuff like that, which is just so cool. And maybe I don't know if it was a nod to Fiona Apple and that photo of her in the subway, dressed that way. But it's an incredible thing to have, that theatricality and You look at maybe artists like CMAT. There's something there as well. There's a shared connection. Last dinner party, and the idea that these artists exist, this art exists, but it has been buried by an algorithm that is not allowing you to find it. One wonders, how long some of this can actually last. How much can artists, how much can the uberous nature of art or the way art is presented to us continue? That's not to say that before this, that it was all roses in the garden. There was a number of bottlenecks, and there still is a number of bottlenecks within any art scene. Radio is in and of itself a bottleneck. It is not free of the tyranny of record labels by any means. Neither is television. Neither is any art, festivals. All of these things are bottlenecked in some ways. The Irish music scene is bottlenecked in its own way. You're looking at like the Choice Music Prize happened this week, and I'm not talking about the Choice in particular, but there's something in that where you have something like RTE promoting the Choice Music Prize, promoting these alternative artists and these alternative bands who played on stage. You look at Sprints, you look at Roche, you look at all these people. How many of them will be actually played on RTE shows in the coming weeks and months? I'm going to say probably not as many, although it is a state-owned, in a way, broadcast. And obviously I'm talking in a very Irish-centric idea here, I should say. The Choice Prize is an Irish Music Choice Prize. But it could be the very same in your scene, the BBC, or it could be in America. I know it's a bit different in America in terms of radio stations are very different and the way they're ran is very different, but it could be very similar. There are bottlenecks, for sure. And there are people as well who make decisions, whose tastes create a bottleneck, who gets in and who gets out, who goes to festivals, who doesn't go to festivals. The road of the independent artist is one paved with, blockages and, as I say, bottlenecks. And, music critics or music reviewers or music bloggers couldn't themselves be a sort of bottleneck. I'm not going to deny that either. I'm not going to deny the place of the music media within that too and say that it's all roses in the garden. It's not. And obviously there are people who do great things to share great music all the time. But it is something. It is something to think about. Who have you missed? What song have you missed? Is your favourite song just waiting there for you? So, if Josh Johnson is right, if you haven't found your favourite artist yet, then the real question is, will you ever? The way music is pushed, promoted and packaged in 2025 means most of us are only seeing the surface. The artists breaking through aren't always the most talented or the most meaningful, just the ones with the biggest push. And yet, stories like Chappell Roan's remind us that sometimes the system doesn't win. Sometimes a song finds its people, not because of a viral moment, not because of a label's marketing budget, but because it deserves to. People hear it, feel it, and decide it's theirs. In a world where streaming algorithms decide what's heard, Pink Pony Club is proof that an audience still has the power, that people, real people, can make something last. So, maybe you haven't found your favourite artist just yet. Or maybe still, you haven't been offered the chance to listen to them. Yes, dear listener. They seek him here, they seek him there. There's musos seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he at the disco? That damned elusive Count of Monte playlist. Yes. The Style and Profile and Limsey and Ryan Jeffline playlist making son of a gun has once again returned from those shores of Playlistia to bring you another beautiful bounty in terms of TLMT's Irish mixtape on Spotify. Check it out. Or wherever you want to check out music. You don't have to check it out on Spotify. It's just easier to do this. Anyway, starting off with Delivery Service and their brand new single, Ghost. And indeed, this is a new band to me at the last mixtape and to the Count of Monte Playlisto. Indeed, this is a really, really cool song. And I like really what's happening in the Irish music scene at the moment. It's a real kind of, I don't want to say a callback, but an inspiration of the kind of the low, loose-hanging alternate rock of the 1990s. And this has a little bit of a feel of maybe bands like Dinosaur Jr., stuff like that. And the band themselves have a really nice identity within the kind of, I want to say the milieu of dream pop. It's more on the, as I say, alt rock, indie pop kind of feel of that. It's about mood, it's about texture, it's about the delivery, it's about the kind of the lull and the push and the pull. And they sound like a band that really kind of have that connection and have that ability. And as I say, this is the first track I have heard from Delivery Service, and it's a bit of a banger. I really like it. It's down my kind of street, up my alley in terms of music that I really like, and I think this is really cool. And I think you'll like it as well. It's called Ghost, and it's by Delivery Service. It's on the playlist. Check it out. Up next, we have Michal and their brand new single, DMAM. Apologies about the pronunciation. I hope my Munster Irish pronunciation of that worked out for me, hopefully. But yeah, this is an incredible new track from them and from a brand new album, DMAM. And it is really, really cool. Very angular, aggressive, raw, growl kind of sound, you know, aligned with something of the more harder edge of like bands like Parquet Courts, of the kind of the post-punk feel, but with a bit of noise written into it and a bit of indie written into it as well. And it's a really, really cool track. Really well performed, really well produced. You have to do, when you're doing songs or sounds like this, in order to keep the interest, in order to not make it sound like an exercise in kind of abstractness, you also have to make it sound like a song and have to, you know, make it connect with the audience, as we were saying earlier in the show. So yeah, I think this song really does both. They're a really, really cool band as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the album fits around a song like this, but it's really cool. It's DMAM. It is on the playlist. Check it out. Up next, we have another brand new single from Lulla Hush, and hopefully I'm getting this correct. Another Irish pronunciation. It is Maggie na Vlahish. Maggie na Vlaish. Maggie na Vlaish, I'm going to say. Once again, I wasn't good at Irish in school and I'm having trouble. So Maggie na Vlaish, I'm going to say, by Lulla Hush. And we were covering before in his most recent release before this that he had moved into kind of integrating Irish folk and trad into a shimmering electronic abstractness sound. And indeed, this is the case with this song I'm going to abbreviate as Maggie. And it is, once again, like a kind of a sonic soundscape kind of type thing. It's quite abstract in its layering and in its structure, and it's beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's a very interesting way of taking Irish traditional music and Irish traditional sounds and putting them through the scope and through the filter of modern electronic production. And yeah, I think this is really cool. A really interesting direction from Lulla Hush. I think it does keep a lot of his characteristics from some earlier work that he had done in the past, and with a kind of a new edge to it. And as I say, you know, we're talking about a lot of the time the reconnection with traditional music in Ireland with kind of modernity. If you look at, like, you know, Lankum or the Mary Wallopers or people like that. So this kind of furthers it, but in a different genre and in a different feel. And I think it is really cool. So it's definitely worth checking out. Lulla Hush with Maggie na Vlaish. Next we have God Knows with his brand new single, The Art of Alienation, and an incredible new release from God Knows, and great to see him back releasing some new tracks indeed. And The Art of Alienation is characteristically striking and bold and lyrically kind of intertwined, as always God Knows has done with his previous work, and indeed with his work with Rusangano Family and all of that kind of type stuff. And yeah, once again, a powerful track by God Knows, who is a very powerful artist on the Irish music scene in terms of rap and hip hop and songwriting in general. So definitely check him out and his music out. But The Art of Alienation does take that kind of by the scruff of the neck and has that kind of growled delivery that he has to his rhymes and has to his kind of flows, stuff like that. He has this kind of feel that his music has an urgency and an immediacy to the words. They need to be said, they need to be expressed, they need to be heard, and indeed he delivers them in such a way that that comes through in the music and in indeed the performance. The song is The Art of Alienation and the artist is God Knows. Check him out. Finishing up the Counts countdown this week, we have Ria Rua with her brand new single, Black and Tan. And indeed, we are kind of keeping that abstractness, that angularness that has kind of gone through the entirety of this week's playlist picks, and even the kind of the growled narrative and immediacy of the expectation of the art that we were talking about with God Knows. And indeed, such is the case with Black and Tan, a kind of expressionistic, impressionistic view on modern life by Ria Rua and the people who have been pushed to the forefront, and indeed whether or not they should be. And it's not very easy to know where Ria is coming from in this, and it's a great track, and very, as you say, the immediacy of art, the need to have things expressed, the need to have things said, and indeed such is the case with Black and Tan. In its musicality as well, it's incredibly interestingly produced. It is angular, as I say. There's very different textures going on, but they meld beautifully into one another. Riaru is a commanding performance in the middle of it with some very intricate vocals as well and lyrical lines too. And the rhythm of this track really, really plays out. So Black and Tan by Riaru. It's on the playlist. Check it out! But that's that for this week's pick from the Count of Monty playlist. So these are all tracks from the Irish music scene. And indeed, if you're watching from outside of Ireland, do check out these cool Irish artists. But as I always say on this show, geography has no meaning when it comes to music. You can listen to music from wherever, however you want. It's important to recognise that your geographical proximity to music does not mean it's good or bad or indifferent. It just means your point of view and your taste. So do indulge yourself in music from all over the world, from all sorts of backgrounds, from all sorts of viewpoints, everything like that. Take it in, listen to it. Music is about entertainment, it's about art, it's about expression. So don't limit yourself into what you listen to, or indeed who thinks who should have a shiny award for said music. Music is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, as I say, an entertainment. And the Count of Monty playlist, though, is always here for you to deliver that music and that entertainment. So it goes, and there it went. But before I go, thank you for listening, viewing and watching the Last Mixtape podcast here on YouTube, Apple and indeed on Spotify. If you want to get in touch with the Last Mixtape podcast, please email me at stephen@thelastmixtape.com and I will respond to your correspondence in due course. But for now, that was the Last Mixtape podcast. I was Stephen White. You were the listener. Hey, so long.